So I am man enough to admit that I was completely wrong. Hey guys, welcome back to the DrCliffAuD vlog. This is vlog number 224, and today I want to talk to you guys about a topic that I was completely wrong about when it comes to audiology. But before I get into it, if you could do me a huge favor, click the like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on, go ahead and do that as well. It is greatly appreciated. Now let's get into the particular topic at hand today. So I spend a good amount of time going onto audiology forums on Facebook and groups on Facebook, both for professionals as well as for consumers. So individuals who actually have hearing loss and who are treating their hearing loss, or who are looking for information from either other professionals or from other consumers about what they should do about their hearing loss. And every once in a while, I see a question that comes in and I'm like, you know what? I could provide some additional value to that conversation because, you know, I know a lot about audiology, or so I thought. So there was a particular topic that came in, and I'll actually share this screen capture here with you guys. I don't think that they would mind me doing that in this group. But basically the question here in this particular audiology group was, has anyone been told they could lose some of their hearing from not wearing their hearing aids? I find they are like shoes. As soon as I get home, I take them out of my ears. And you know what? I completely agree from a shoe perspective. At the end of the day, I love taking off my shoes. It's just relieving. It's also sometimes relieving to take my glasses off at the end of the day. But the question at hand here is whether or not your hearing will actually get worse if you do not wear your hearing aids all the time. And so let me give you a little bit of context from a background perspective. I believe that in the profession of audiology and hearing instrument sciences, which are basically the two professions that would be fitting individuals with hearing aids, I believe that there are some individuals out there who will tell their patients that if they don't get hearing aids, or if they don't wear their hearing aids, that their hearing loss is going to get worse. And I do not subscribe to that belief. At least I didn't until some of the comments inside of this Facebook group. So here's the thing. There is no research that's out there that suggests that if you don't wear your hearing aids, that the X's and O's, or thresholds on your audiogram, will get worse and worse as time goes on. Basically, the X's and the O's are functions of your outer hair cell function and whether or not you can detect sounds. Now, you know, it would be very compelling to tell someone if they have a hearing loss that you better treat your hearing loss with hearing aids, otherwise your hearing will get worse, because then they're more likely to actually treat their hearing loss, which is a terrific idea. But, you know, I had done some research. I didn't do research myself. I went and looked at some literature. Basically, I still have access to the University of Illinois library. And because I basically instruct for the University of Illinois for their business practice course. And I remember going back, it was a couple of years ago, that I was like, you know what? Does not treating your hearing loss, or does auditory deprivation increase your hearing loss? And I could never find any research articles that showed that you would actually get worse hearing if you didn't treat your hearing loss. So based off of that information, I went in and responded inside of this Facebook group and was basically like, so there's no research that suggests that your hearing would get worse if you do not treat your hearing loss with hearing aids, or if you reduce the amount of time that you wear your hearing aids. This is basically just a myth. And, you know, there was a couple people who chimed in and said, well, you know, I was told that your hearing could get worse if you don't wear your hearing aids. And, you know, people who came in and anecdotally said that, you know, my hearing actually declined over the course of a period of time because I was not compliant with wearing my hearing aids. And, you know, there was a couple other comments that came out saying that, well, you know, maybe your hearing loss, meaning the X's and the O's, won't drop down on your audiogram, but your word recognition scores could drop with lack of compliance or lack of use of hearing aids. And I'm like, yeah, I just never saw that. So if someone could identify some peer-reviewed research articles to send to me, then I can go ahead and look into them further. And wouldn't you know it, someone actually did send me some research articles talking about this topic of auditory deprivation and reduction in word recognition score. So word recognition score is when you're being tested and they're playing recorded words or spoken words to you, and you have to repeat those words out loud back to the person testing you, and then you're scored based on the percentage of those words that you get correct. So if you have a 100% word recognition score, that means that all of the sounds that you can hear, all the words rather, that you can hear that are above your threshold levels, you can actually repeat back with 100% accuracy. If you get a 50% WRS score, word recognition score, that means that you can actually understand or comprehend only 50% of that speech information. So basically the research articles that people were sending me was discussing this concept of your word recognition score declining, not your thresholds. But essentially these studies took people that were wearing or that had bilateral hearing loss, meaning that they had hearing loss in both of their ears, but they only wore a hearing aid in one ear and not the other. And several of these research articles indicated that even though the X's and O's didn't drop down on the audiogram for the untreated ear, they did notice an actual reduction in word recognition scores in the untreated ear. Now, it was statistically significant, but when you look at research, you have to look at it, in my opinion, from two different perspectives. Number one, was it statistically significant? Meaning, did they show a consistent, measurable decline in the untreated ear when it came to word recognition score performance? So the answer to that in several of these studies was yes. The other question is the effect size, meaning, okay, so even if it was down in the untreated ear, how far down was it? Because if you get a statistically significant difference of 1% decline, that's really not that big of a decline, and you could say that it was statistically significant, but it was not really that big of an effect. Now, if you have a statistically significant shift down, and that shift is dramatic, meaning there's a really big difference between the treated ear and the untreated ear, then you're onto something. And when I was looking at some of these articles, you know, there was a statistically significant reduction in the untreated ear, but the effect size really wasn't that large. But it does not mean that that is inconsequential. Basically, I've changed my view on this based on the articles that I've seen. And now it's not every article, and there's some articles that say that there is no reduction, but there's enough of them out there that would suggest that if you do not treat your hearing loss, or you only treat one of your ears, or you do not wear your hearing aids consistently, that your word recognition ability, which is your ability to comprehend what you're hearing after it's been amplified by your hearing aids, can actually go down. So I basically am like, you know what? You were right, I was wrong. The people who are on there saying that I heard, or that they heard, that your word recognition score, or that your hearing from that perspective could drop, I believe that they were actually correct and that I was wrong in this. And so I probably need to actually go in and explore this further and take a look at several different research articles, not just one or two, but several different research articles to truly determine whether or not I believe there could be a significant reduction in hearing ability if you do not treat your ears with hearing aids, or treat your hearing loss with hearing aids, or if you do not wear your hearing aids consistently. Now, the things that I was previously aware of is that if you do not treat your hearing loss, if you have a hearing loss, your brain actually changes the way that it processes information. So instead of processing all of your sound information inside of the auditory cortex, that workload rather gets shared with other areas of your brain to try to make up for that lack of auditory information. Now, if you end up treating your hearing loss, you can start shifting that back as well. We've also had research come out that has linked this idea of cognitive decline or dementia with untreated hearing loss. You have the Achieve study, you have the Enhance study. I will link both of those down in the description as well inside of this video. But those suggest that if you do not treat your hearing loss with hearing aids, that you actually are accelerating your rate of cognitive decline, which is one of the biggest concerns that people have as they get older. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that A, I was wrong, and B, it's always a good idea to treat your hearing loss and to be as consistent as possible at treating your hearing loss that you can. And, you know, at the end of the day, what you don't want to do is go back and say, you know what, I wish that I would have worn my hearing aids more frequently, or I wish I would have treated my hearing loss earlier. You really don't ever want to get to the point where you're saying that, because there is some potential that if you do not treat your hearing loss to its fullest capacity right now, that it will have a permanent negative impact on you at some point in the future, and you do not want to be one of those people that happens to. So I am extremely grateful for the hearing loss community and basically helping me be better at what I do, because for the past several years I was always like, nope, if you choose not to treat your hearing loss, don't worry, it's not going to get worse. Now there are other cognitive potential negative ramifications of it, but your hearing will stay basically the same or decline at whatever rate it was declining already. And I was wrong on that. So very grateful to the hearing loss community inside of this Facebook group for setting me straight. Honestly, there's probably a variety of things that I am wrong about. And it's funny because, I always try to be of the mindset that I do not want to have confirmation bias. I don't want to have this idea of that I believe in what I believe in, and then any outside opinion, if it doesn't fit what I believe in, I just completely disregard it. I don't want to do that. I want to take other information, essentially interpret it, and come to a different conclusion if I need to come to a different conclusion, if that's what it's suggesting. So I always try to keep my mind open. I always want to get better as an audiologist. I would argue that I'm a relatively young audiologist. I've been practicing since 2016 as a licensed audiologist, so not even 10 years at this point. And I've got a long way to go before I consider myself to be a really good audiologist. There's a lot more learning that has to happen. But nevertheless, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me here today and listening to my story about how I was completely wrong. And as always, I'll see you next week.